Question: how to enter the Christ consciousness? Is it through meditation? Okay, so let's first, if people are not familiar with the terminology, let's just explain what the Christ consciousness is. So, as I explained in my video about how the world was created, it'll help you, if you're not familiar with these terms, to watch that video. What I explain is, our world of form was created by one created being called the Creator. And it decided to create a world that has an outer environment, such as in our world, a planet, stars, galaxies, so forth. And then it sent self-aware extensions of itself into that environment. And it gave them, in the beginning, a very point-like sense of self. And by interacting with their environment, they could expand the sense of self until they could ascend to a higher level and become permanent beings. But they could still keep growing from there. So what the Creator did was it created these extensions of itself, but it gave them the self-awareness as being a point-like being. In other words, you think about yourself, right? You're sitting here and you are looking from your vantage point at the world. You can turn around and look in all directions, but you're looking from one specific vantage point. If you and I were sitting next to each other, you're looking at me from your vantage point, I'm looking at you from my vantage point. And we can't switch bodies. So we always have this point-like sense of awareness. Okay, so we start with this point-like sense of self, but the Creator also gave us free will because, as I explained in the other video, that's the only way we can grow in self-awareness. We experiment with our free will. But the Creator knew that there are certain ramifications, because we could potentially, if we have free will, we could potentially get stuck. We could create an illusion for ourselves of who we are and what we can and can't do and get stuck in it. So the Creator realized there has to be a way for people to experiment their free will, to go into an illusion, but also get out of it again. So how can that be achieved? Well, the Creator, out of its own being, it created what is called the Christ consciousness, or the one mind, or the Buddha nature, or Brahman. So in other words, there is this consciousness that is a universal state of consciousness. And everything in the world of form, including our environment, including you as a self-aware being, me as a self-aware being, everything in the world of form is created out of this one mind. Which means that you as a self-aware being, your natural sense of self is that you experience yourself as connected to the one mind. You may not fully understand what that is, but you experience you're connected to something outside of your outer mind, outside of your sense of self. You're not a complete being. There's something outside of your mind that you're connected to. That's the one mind. But as I have explained, as a self-aware being, we have two options for using our free will. We can use it by seeing ourselves as connected beings, and we are working to expand our connection to whatever we are connected to, which I also explained is our higher self and also the ascended masters that have ascended before us, going all the way up to the Creator. We're really, through the one mind, we are created to everything. But the most immediate way to experience that is that we are connected to our higher selves or to certain ascended masters who are working with us personally. So we can see ourselves as connected beings, work on expanding that connection. But the other option we have, because we have free will, is that we can go into what I call the illusion that we are separate beings. And once we go into the illusion of separation, we lose that sense of connection. And we create these structures in our minds, what I call the subconscious selves or separate selves. And we can create more and more of these. And it's like, we can compare it to a maze, where every time you take a turn in the maze, you're creating a self, then you create another self and another self, and you go deeper and deeper into the maze. So the question is, how to enter the Christ consciousness? Because again, no matter how deeply you go into this maze, the only way to get out of it is to connect to the Christ consciousness. So you could say that right now you are in your personal maze. You have created that over many lifetimes. You are at a certain point in the maze. And right now, your mind is affected by many illusions, but right now there's one major illusion that's holding you back at your present place in the maze. And it's not a matter of rationalizing what that illusion is. It can help you to rationalize, but it's not really a matter of rationalizing. But it is a matter of, at your present level, in your current state of mind, you can connect to the Christ mind. And the Christ mind can give you an insight that will help you see the illusion, see through the illusion, and free yourself from it. This doesn't mean you're home free in one leap, but you take the next step up. I have a video where I talk, a breakthrough video where I talk about 144 levels of consciousness. And that the spiritual path really is about rising up on this scale of the 144 levels until we reach the ultimate level, then we can ascend. So right now, you're at a certain level, there's a certain illusion that's keeping you at that level, and you can use the one mind, the Christ mind, to see through that illusion. And how do you then connect to the Christ mind? Well, you simply have to be open to it. You have to be open to seeing something you are not seeing right now. And as I have explained in several of my videos about these subconscious selves, the self will try to prevent you from seeing it, but it can't stop you. The only way it can stop you is to divert your attention so you are always looking out instead of looking in. That's why Jesus said 2,000 years ago, why are you looking at the splinter in the eyes of your brother instead of looking at the beam in your own eye? The beam in your own eye is the illusion that's holding you back on your present level. So it is really a matter of being willing to see something in yourself instead of understanding something out there. And this is one of the things that happen to people on the spiritual path. They find the spiritual teaching, now they think they just have to study the outer teaching, but they don't use the outer teaching to look at themselves and their psychology. I did the same thing for the first years I was on the path, but there came a point where I realized this just isn't getting me anywhere. So I had to start looking at myself. I went into therapy and used various techniques to look at my psychology. I've been doing that ever since. So back to the question. How to enter the Christ consciousness? Well, in a sense, I understand the question, but it's really not the best way to formulate it. Because you're not entering the Christ consciousness. You're already in it, or it is in you. You are created out of it. It's just that your outer psychology, these subconscious selves, they are pulling you away from it. So I've talked about we have these illusions we believe in, and the illusions are, so to speak, pulling us away from the Christ consciousness because we are looking away from it. So, as I said, we have to come to a point where we are willing to look at ourselves, look for the illusion. But you also have to be willing to go within, because the Christ consciousness, what's going to help you see through an illusion is an intuitive insight, an aha experience, as many people call it. And that intuitive insight, it can very well be helped along by studying. For example, you can study psychology. Let's just say, for example, you are observing yourself that in certain situations you become angry. Then you could read psychology, because you're obviously not the only person who has this issue. You could read psychology about it and come to gradually understand it. But then when you have that outer understanding, you sort of use that to go within, and you ask your higher self or your ascended teachers, or what is called your Christ self, to help you see it. And if you can do this and be neutral, you will receive some insight that helps you. I've done this myself thousands, tens of thousands of times. Many spiritual people I know have done the same thing. And it doesn't mean that you are instantly going to get an insight that's the booming voice from heaven. Sometimes it takes a while. I mean, I have often had certain idea that there's something I need to work on in my psychology. I start studying it with the outer mind, working on it. But it sometimes takes days, weeks, even months before I have a breakthrough and I see it. So sometimes it takes time. But what I'm saying is that what helps you see through an illusion or subconscious self is the one mind, the Christ mind. And you have access to it right within you. That's why Jesus said the kingdom of God is within you. You have access to it. But in order to hear that, the intuition has been called the still small voice within. So in order to hear it, you have to withdraw your attention from these outer selves that are always trying to pull your attention outwards. And be willing to go within, be willing to be neutral and say, and really consider, what is it I haven't seen here? What is it I'm not seeing? And as I have explained, there is a scale of the levels of consciousness we can have on Earth that range from the lowest to the 144th level. And for each of the levels we go up, there's a certain illusion, a certain subconscious self we have to resolve. And as we do this, as we go higher and higher on this staircase, we have more and more clarity in our minds. We can say there's less illusions and subconscious selves that are cluttering up our subconscious mind. And that means our conscious mind, it becomes easier and easier to tune in to the one mind and receive these intuitive guidance. I mean, I look back at myself. I was 18 when I first found the spiritual path. That's 48 years ago. And my intuition is so much clearer today than it was back then. So much easier for me to get these inner directions, because I won't say that I have entered the Christ consciousness as much as I have stopped pulling myself away from it as much. So I am more aware that I'm in it. I mean, I know it's kind of a subtle point, but when you say how to enter, it implies I'm here. I'm separated from the Christ consciousness. It's out there somewhere, and I need to find a way so I can enter it. And that's a very understandable reaction. I had that probably for the first, 15, 20 years I was on the spiritual path. I looked at it that way because that's the only way we can look at it at a certain level. I'm just saying that there comes a point where that view just starts fading away, because now we have the inner experience of we are consciously aware that we have connected to and contacted the Christ consciousness. And we make this subtle shift where we realize it's not a matter of we are outside and we have to enter. We are already in it. We just have to return to our natural state, because as I said, when we were first created, even though we had a point-like sense of identity, we had a sense of connection to the Christ mind. And we haven't really gone away from it, because, as I said, everything is made out of the Christ mind. You can't get away from it. In your mind, you can create the illusion that you are outside of it. But that illusion exists only in your mind. So it's not really a matter of moving from point A to point B, or point C, the Christ consciousness. It's a matter of realizing you're already there, you're already in it. Because you could never get away from it. It was just an illusion that you were separated from it. Okay, so is it through meditation? Well, I explain in many of my videos what I consider the essential steps to growing spiritually. And it is partly you invoke spiritual protection to seal your energy field from all the projections that are coming at the outside. You call to be cut free from your ties to the lower forces or lower realms or other people. You invoke violet flame energy, consume the energies in your energy field. But then you use suitable techniques that I talk about in several videos, but there are also many others out there, to become more aware of what's happening in your psychology, so you can resolve these subconscious selves and the illusions they're based on. And as you resolve all of this, you are gradually connecting to the Christ consciousness, becoming more aware of it. Now, meditation can play a role in this. I mean, there are various forms of meditation that can help you still the mind. But as I've also said about meditation, if you don't have spiritual protection, or if you have ties to these lower forces, then meditation can actually even open you up to these lower energies, or it can certainly make it you don't connect to the Christ mind through meditation if your mind is pulled into all these thoughts and feelings by these outside forces. So meditation isn't a surefire way, but of course it can help to meditate. And meditation, I mean also contemplation, where you contemplate, you observe your own psychology, your own reactions. What do you see in your mind, and what is a self or a certain reactionary pattern? What is it based on? What is it you believe about yourself in certain situations? For example, do you believe that the only way to react to a certain situation is anger? Well, that's because you have a subconscious self in your subconscious mind that can only react that way. It's like a computer that's programmed to react a certain way. So you can begin to question that self, see that there are other ways to react, because there are other people who can react without anger to similar situations. You can use psychological tools to find out, why do you feel angry? Why do you feel the need to become angry? What's the belief behind it, that you think certain things should happen, certain things should happen, all these kind of things. So this can also be a form of meditation. But again, as I've also said in several videos, there's no automatic path. It's not that you can just say, like, for example, I've talked about my first spiritual movement was Transcendental Meditation, and in the early days they promised that if you meditated 20 minutes morning and evening for 8 years, you would automatically reach cosmic consciousness, and that's just not a realistic promise. So it is, entering the Christ consciousness or overcoming the illusion that you are separated from it. There's no quick and easy way to do it. There is a path that's a viable path, but it requires work. It requires your willingness to look at yourself. Look at what pulls you away from feeling connected to the one mind.